All right, the stock market, the economy, a lot of people are calling for a V-shaped recovery, while others are saying, well, that's just way too realistic. There will be no V-shaped recovery. And yet others say it'll be a W-shaped recovery. Join me this time from Thousand Oaks, California, is one of this nation's leading money managers. He's president of Investors Advantage. They have over $800 million under management and doing investment advice for folks across America. Let me welcome John Grace. John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Rick. And just to clarify, we're part of a team. It's a Southern California-based Elite Financial Network, Securities America, our broker-dealer, that adds up to that total. So we contribute very nicely. We're not individually managing 800 million, just to be clear, but as a group we are.
As a group?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarification.
Sure.
V-shaped recovery. What do you think?
Well, I think it's great for those who might be wearing those, rose-colored glasses or drinking Larry Kudlow's. I understand it's very good Kool-Aid. I think it's wildly optimistic. How many recoveries have we seen? Well, truthfully, we'd like to see a W. We'd like to see a D. A W might not be so bad. The next version I've heard of is a swoosh, like the Nike swoosh, kind of like a hockey puck or hockey stick. But the one that intrigues me the most, Rick, is the one we've seen twice in history that most of us aren't aware of, and it's an L-shaped recovery. So the first one we saw was after the Great Depression, where, if I'm not mistaken, it took just about 25 years for U.S. stocks, it was just the Dow at the time, to get back to even. At the same time, New York real estate was off 70%, and it only took about 40 years to get back to even. Now, to put that in perspective, if you're an adult in the early 1900s, the average age of death was 57. So yes, that would mean that if it took 25 years for stocks to come back, $1 million became 108,000. Imagine that. And $1 million in New York real estate became about 300,000. Both of them took over 20 to 40 years to get back to even. That would mean that those prices fully recovered long after we were all pushing up daisies. So that's the first one. And then there's the second one, more recently. We all knew to a person, particularly those of us here on the West Coast, it was clear Japan was going to be numero uno in gross domestic product. And we were just fine with that. We were resigned. They have a sun on their flag, and it's their turn. All right. But notice that their markets pretty much stalled out just around New Year's Eve, 1989. So I believe the Nikkei 225, that's their variation of our S&P 500, was about 39,000 at its peak. The first leg down was 10,000. The second leg down was 7,000. So like our Great Depression, their stock market was off about 80% in a whopping 30 months.
Wow.
Yeah, a year later or so, it looked like their real estate market peaked, and that fell about 70%. And I found an article, this was 3 years ago, that suggested they thought the Japanese real estate market would fully recover in 2025. Now, that's before COVID-19, so I would say I don't think that it's going to happen by 2025. But here's the thing. I like to ask it as a trick question. You've seen the Japanese stock market and the Japanese real estate market decline dramatically. Which is back to even since 1990? And I say it's a trick question to try and jog people to think the easy answer must be neither, and that would be the correct answer. Neither the Japanese stock market nor the Japanese real estate market are back to their highs of 1990, and that would be about exactly, 30 years ago?
Wow.
Exactly. So to me, it's like, well, gee, could what happened here in the Depression and what happened there recently, 30 years ago, happen here? It could. Okay? And one of the reasons I think it is very possible is we've got to understand something that nobody's talking about. It's not political, and it's nothing to argue about. And by the way, there's nothing you're going to do about it. And that is, globally, we have more people 65 and older than 5 and younger. We've never been here before.
So what is...
I mean, just to put it in perspective, if us boomers had a pair of PF Flyers, which we were sold on. They were going to make you run faster and jump higher. If you still have one of those bad boys and you're lacing them up, I don't think you're racing anybody. You're not even trying to hustle from the couch to the refrigerator or to the mailbox. Everything's moving a whole lot more slowly now, and it ain't speeding up, right? Because peak spending happens when you have the kids at home, and that's generally top peaks out around mid 40s to early 50s. Once the kids are gone, outside of healthcare, your demand for spending money has suddenly been reduced to ashes, really. You're done. Everything else is optional other than healthcare.
So where do you think the opportunities in that scenario, the shift in demographics, 65 over, the market is declining, let's say, for not 12 months, but for a long time. Where should investors be looking to put their money?
Well, first, I mean, when you look at the news, you keep hearing about how buoyant the market has been. And it has been from the low about March 23rd this year. But what's interesting to recognize, if we start the countdown from 1/1/20 to today, I believe it's only the NASDAQ that's up about 5.4% last time I checked, 5.4. The Dow is off 5.83. That's nearly 6%. It's in negative territory. And surprisingly, I'm sorry, that's the S&P. The Dow is off nearly 11% year to date. So this is, supposed to be the best economy ever. And this is supposed to be a fantastic stock market. Only notice 2 of the 3 indexes are in negative territory. So, and this very well could be the beginning, because this beautiful gain that we've all enjoyed, I would submit, is primarily a result of stimulus money. And with the PPP money, or the stimulus checks that people have been receiving, $1,200 a person, right? It looks like we're, for the first time since the Great Depression, reorienting our thinking by saving this money or actually investing it, but we're not spending it. And that's a big shift for Americans, because we've all signed on to spend, baby, spend. And that might be good for the economy, but it's not good for your household economy.
Right.
And I think people are going to, we were just working with a lady yesterday. She's 72, she's still working. And, she has a good income. But if she stopped work today to have the equivalent income, she would need to have $2 million set aside using the 4% rule. 4% of $2 million is $80,000. She's well short of that, like most of us are. So the first thing to do is to figure out, what are you trying to do here? Are you just trying to see a gain and feel good about that temporarily until it reverses itself and you feel bad about it? Like either move had anything to do with your intelligence? Set the target. What kind of money you're going to need when you want to be financially independent? That's number one. And, how much money you're going to need behind door number one, so that it provides the same kind of spending power after your last paycheck. And then 2, if not even more importantly, how much risk can you accept? And when I say that, I'm not talking about the traditional version of, are you conservative, moderate, or aggressive, but I'm saying we can do better than that. When we're talking about risk, Rick, we're talking about let's ask you a series of questions. I don't know the answers. You don't know the answers. But once you go through these series of questions, you'll find out for yourself what is your answer. And when we did this with this young lady yesterday, she discovered that she could accept an 8% loss. And then when we look at the portfolio without any adjustments in more passive investments, the last time things got nasty, traditional mutual funds and exchange traded funds, when the market was off 37%, many of those static positions were off 42%. Now, that might work, be just fine if you're making contributions. But if you're taking withdrawals, that could be, what was your friend becomes your foe.
Yeah. So and that would lead to the conclusion, I would think, that the buy and hold strategy in this environment that used to be touted may not be for everybody.
May not be for everybody, 100%. I mean, I just got off the phone with a client who's referring his granddaughter with $120,000 thanks to mom and dad and whatnot. Now, for her, who cares? In fact, I'm going to say to her that you want the market to go down. because you're not going to need this money for 40 years. So it's a beautiful thing when it goes down. Now, don't tell that to grandma and your mother, right, and your grandfather, but you're in a different situation. You want prices to be cheaper now.
That's right.
And maybe they'll be at a similar level or higher sometime in the future, but you're in a different environment preparing for your future with all of this time. You can withstand the volatility, and even negative volatility, as I say, is kind of like, collecting shells on the seashore when the tide is out. You can't collect those shells when the tide's in. You got to do it when the tide's
All right.
So you're picking up more shells or more shares as prices are declining when you're going to need the money into the future, or you don't care what the account does. If, on the other hand, you're, the grandparents, where there's approximately $2 million, that gives them the 4% on $2 million is $80,000. That gives them the kind of income that they need, and they can't afford for this $2 million to drop to $1 million, because to get the same income of 80, now that it was 4% on $1 million to get 80, if the 2 million becomes 1 million and you still need 80, that means, of course, the withdrawal rate has to double from 4% to 8% to get the same $80,000 out. Now, if you're withdrawing at 8 and there's another market loss, or you don't see a market gain, the equivalent of at least that 8, guess what? This airplane is coming out of the sky.
All right, John Grace, we're out of time in this segment. We appreciate a lot, very good, insightful information. I'm not hearing a lot of this anywhere else in the media. I'm not going to name any names, but I appreciate the insight you've given our viewers. And, it sounds like if indeed we go to a Japanese type of recovery or a post-depression type of recovery, that could create some opportunities for a lot of people in America at a younger age. It sounds as if. All right, John Grace, I want to let our viewers know this is your first appearance on the show. You're the president of Investors Advantage, and you are now, to make the announcement, you're an official contributor to Politics and Profits, and we'll be seeing you on a regular basis for a long time. And I want to get into some of these great topics you brought up in more detail in future appearances, because this is good stuff. We thank you for joining us. All right, broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA Studios. I'm Rick Amato. We're back after this.